Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. Today's topic, Veterans Day. American blacks have and still been the most historically patriotic. No comparisons. Again, today's topic is Veterans Day. American blacks have and basically still have been the most historically patriotic. No comparisons. That's right. No comparisons. And today being Veterans Day 2023. And you still have personnel who know they are from within certain parts of the Padana-based culture and some other Susan come latelys and Chuck come lately type of personnel from no Pacific culture or cultures who have no clue about anything dealing with true American Black history, which is part of the larger parts of American history, but have the nerve and the super audacity to look down upon American blacks. When Colin Kaepernick, a couple of years or so ago, was kneeling down in that particular historical time, and that professional football particular time when he was playing professional football in a certain type of well-known football association and he kneeled down, you had people from however parts of Padambe's culture lost their mind. The ones this applies to. Oh, because Colin Kaepernick was sitting there protesting for basically racial brutality by certain numbers of bad C's that's supposed to do the serve and protect, and this in general protesting the racial racism going toward the American blacks. Not talking about sellouts or gullibles or simple ones that don't get it. And what happened, right? There were numbers of people that were like, oh, Colin Kaepernick sitting there kneeling down. He should just worry about playing football, right? Like a good little slave, right? Just do what, make money for a lot of type rich owners and who are laughing over all that. Numbers of American black, numbers of athletes, the ones I'm talking about that don't get it on that, right? Nothing wrong making that money. But then we start looking at certain type of professional football organizations, professional basketball association. You say, how many owners are American blacks again? And who's the predominant base demographics of the people who are playing? Another game in itself. But the point is, Colin Kaepernick, when he was kneeling down, you had none of the personnel within the predominant culture and some other ones that were talking about, oh, he shouldn't be kneeling down. Keep all that personal stuff to himself, and that, well, then at the same time, oh, that's anti-military, anti-military. You're talking about a people who has been the most patriotic people ever in this country. Yes, more than quite a number of people in the predominant culture, since numbers of people in the predominant culture have never had to go through an enslavement for centuries. And then the indirect effects after that. So of course, and then for numbers of American blacks to sit there and stand tall and be like volunteering to sit there and serve in the service, to say, hey, treat us with equality. We will fight for this country. Just treat us with equality. So Colin Kaepernick was kneeling down for protest racial brutality by certain types of bad seeds, and numbers of other persons who would like to practice racial racism toward American blacks. That's seen as anti-military. That's seen as anti-military. Man, they can get out here with that stuff and go jump into a lake of fire with those kind of silly games. The American blacks have been the most patriotic people again ever in America. There's nobody compare us to the American blacks. In American Revolutionary War in the late 1700s, show me where this gigantic percentage of Hispanics were in the American Revolutionary War like American blacks. I don't think so. Show me where this major gigantic numbers of Asian personnel were in the American Revolutionary War in the late 1700s. What was that again? I don't think so. Show me what these what we call Native Americans at in its late 1780s, right? Show me where they were involved in the American Revolutionary War, left and right. I don't think so. Nobody has the numbers of demographics of serving the military as the American blacks for centuries. Nobody comes close to that, besides certain ones within the predominant culture. So when people try to play a little silly game, they can go jump into a lake of fire. Nobody no other culture, background, border break, illegal immigration status, foreign migration, personnel bad to get those visas to be able to go to school somewhere in America, et cetera, et cetera. People know what I'm talking about. No one comes close to the American blacks. Let me sit there and show you something. And it's an insult. And unfortunately, there's numbers of American blacks don't even understand. It's an insult when you got the again Chuck come latelys and the Susan come latelys to this country. That just popped over here about a generation ago. Even when some that have been over here a couple of generations, slightly more than that, their demographics and numbers were minuscule. They ain't worth even talking about. In the late 1700s, when the Constitution came in existence, right, there are three major cultures. There are three cultures, let me phrase that, three types of demographics majorly. What we call whites, whatever that's supposed to mean, because other people that slid in from different countries across that Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean, right, and slid under the banner of white. That's another topic in itself as well. The second largest population in America was the American blacks. The third largest population we call Native Americans. So who you think was sitting there fighting the American Revolutionary War fighting the Civil War that was 100 years later. Who do we think the top two people was fighting those wars? The numbers of whites, Anglos, should I say, and American blacks. But this being Veterans Day, you still got people that want to minimize the heck out of the greatness of American black achievements and American black patriotic involvement in the military. And that needs to change. Let me go ahead and play you something. Give me a second. Let me play you something. Give me one moment. Let me play you something. Give me one moment here.
The interesting common fact that surrounded all of their backgrounds was that all of them had wanted to fly.
There has never been in the course of time more inspiring words written than those that read, that all men are created equal. Sadly, for many these same words proved a hollow promise left to echo in time, resounding as a mockery of an equality that would demand years of struggle, overshadowed by bitter disappointment. Equality was to remain an elusive dream. The dim light of hope never blazed brighter for Black Americans than during an era in American history when they began challenging the discriminatory practices of the armed forces. Key to the demands of major Black organizations such as the NAACP, the National Urban League, and others was for the designation of centers where Negroes could be trained for work in all branches of the aviation corps. It was not enough to train pilots alone, but navigators, bombardiers, gunners, radio men, and even mechanics. Under this collective pressure, Congress made concessions by passing Public Law 18. Under its directive, an air school to prepare blacks for military service was authorized.
Mm, mm, mm. I'm going to show you a clip. This was basically World War II. The Constitution, American Revolutionary War, was a late, but 1776, July the 4th, 1776, is when you had the colonists that declared their independence from the British, July the 4th or July the 3rd, 1776. The Constitution was basically created and ratified a few years later, or several years later, on that situation. Let me say this again. July the 4th, 1776 is when basically formalness of the colonists said, we want to basically govern ourselves and form the United States of America. July the 4th, 1776. July the 4th, 1776, July the 4th, 1776, people. Again, show me where all these various types of agents were at. I don't think so. Show me where these various type of Hispanics are at. I don't think so. Show me this gigantic number of what we call Native Americans that are about to start lining up and wanting to serve in the American Revolutionary War. I don't think so. The American blacks were there to serve in the American Revolutionary War while still collectively going through black pain. And you got the nerve of some people within certain parts of Padang-based culture who try to play little silly bleep bleep games and think American blacks collectively are some anti-military. Go to you know what with those games, the ones who know I'm talking about. Yes. It's like, get out here with that nonsense, right? Get out here with that nonsense. See, it wasn't American blacks that was sitting there putting collectively numbers of Anglos or whites in bondage. I don't think so. It wasn't American blacks that were sitting there buying up Anglo slaves, right, on plantations and making them subservient and working for free. And then when the American Revolutionary War broke out, that the American blacks were in control, but at the same time they needed more bodies and stuff like that. So they sit there and put a call out to the cloud people to sit there and show up and fight, fight for the freedom of the American flag, right? While at the same time being collective slaves. I don't think so. So who do you think was patriotic, people? And members and numbers of American blacks better stop allowing people to dictate what other people feel or think American black history is. Again, nobody compares to the patriotics of the American black collectively. Nobody, right? Nobody on this, right? And you talking about again, why I just showed just that clip. That was the great piece of the greatness of the Tuskegee Airmen, World War II. There is no such thing as a Asian Tuskegee Airman. There is no Native American Tuskegee Airman. There is no Hispanic Tuskegee Airman. I don't think so. And even that game of genericalities of classification, which Asians people are talking about, I say Asians. That's very generic. There's all types of Asians out there. We say Hispanic. Which Hispanic? Keyword Hispanic means Spanish. Which countries then? Which backgrounds? What ethnic backgrounds of Hispanics? What about Native Americans? What about the Native Americans? Which Native Americans? Which tribe? East Coast, Southern, Northern, Eastern? Which ones? See, that's logical analysis. See, I ain't got time to play. I don't have time to play these little silly games when people try to play these little childish, derelict, nonsensical tactics, right? Because it's infantile to me. The American blacks, again, there is no comparison to the American blacks that serve with distinction, with courage, and patriotism. Nobody compares to this. And again, even when you have some personnel that have the face of black, who know what I'm talking about? There are certain ones from the great continent of ancient Africa, right? And how many came and stand other Africans? And tribalism is running wild. But you got people that weren't willing to talk about that. And how many numbers of certain ones from Africa, I'm talking about the one this applies to, get on that plane as fast as possible or try to get that visa or some type of document to be able to get to America. Or however numbers go through the borders illegally. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. And what about certain numbers of islanders? I'm not talking about the ones that are gullible and sell out and can't stand black folks either. Don't get it confused. Right? What about the ones that come over to America illegally as well? And very few also they're allowed to come over, right, to go to school or some type of business or whatever it might be. Their numbers are minuscule. Just like numbers of African demographics are still minuscule. But within certain parts of the African personnel who arrived in the States, the ones it applies to, this applies to certain ones within the Caribbean Islands, the ones it applies to, do have some nerve to try to look down upon American blacks. Are you out your freaking mind? I don't see no all African Tuskegee Airmen ever. I didn't see no Buffalo Soldiers, African personnel. I didn't see no Caribbean Tuskegee Airmen. I didn't see no Caribbean Buffalo Soldiers. I don't think so. And those American blacks about to start putting some people in place. Let's start putting people in place. Now, is it going to happen overall? No, it's not overall. Because unfortunately, the American blacks don't get it. That American blacks are the most hated people in the States collectively. And I'm not talking about sellouts and gullible ones because they're only puppets. But I just kind of wanted to show that particular clip on that situation, on that. Because again, the American blacks have no comparisons of who have been the most patriotic people in this country. From the American Revolutionary War, and then going 100 years later. Now remember 1776, at 1776, and a few years later, when the American Revolutionary War began, when that was over with, uh, American blacks were still collectively in enslavement. Not Hispanics, not Native Americans, not Asians. Mm, mm, mm. What was that? Quietness. So from 1776 to 1865 is almost 4 generations, almost 100 years later. So still after the during the American Revolutionary War, when American blacks were standing tall, the ones that wanted to volunteer to help this country win against the British, right? Who and American blacks just wanted to be treated as humans. And after the American Revolutionary War, what happened? Still collectively enslavement. See, this is how they still want American blacks to look.
Oh, I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. As I grind to Louisiana, my true love for to see. Oh, it rained so hard the day I left, the weather it was dry. The sun so hot I froze to death. Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't.
No other culture and background had to endure that in such a consistent way. Don't even think about playing that game saying, what about the Native Americans? Go to you know what. Just go somewhere. Well, what about some of the Asian personnel? Go to you know what. Nobody predates blackface and things like I just showed you than what American blacks have been portrayed. So go to you know what with that game. American blacks need to understand and stop allowing people to dictate what they think American black history is supposed to be. So I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show. And by the way, I do salute the good veterans out there, the good numbers of active duty people in the service, especially the American black veterans that are not sellouts, are not gullibles. I salute the active duty numbers of American blacks that are not sellouts, are not gullible ones, and they're just doing what they do. I salute you. Thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.